Yes! I did it! I got to level 12. You guys have got to check out one of these. This is one of the new video game systems they came out with. Actually, it's not. It looks kind of like an old Game Boy or something. Actually, this is the Chrysler DRB3. This is the OEM dealer scan tool that was used in the late 80s, early 90s, and most all of the 90s on Chrysler vehicles. Today was an oh happy day for Hoovie's Viper. We've been battling with the temperature gauge for a long time. We finally got it fixed. It is totally fixed now. As you know, we've done head gaskets and different things on that, and that's all happy. That's working great. But what it ended up being is the original radiator was just kind of plugged up. We've got an upgraded Row Racing aluminum radiator in it. That brought the temperature down 25 degrees, but it was still hovering at 225, 230, and I got my temperature gun out, and it's 195, 200 on the coolant pipes, and I was like, something's not right still. The gauge is not showing the truth. We tried a different sensor. We tried a Dodge sensor. We tried BWD. We tried standard brand. It didn't matter. It was the same scenario every time. Finally, my mentor that just actually rebuilt the transmission on the Jurassic Park Jeep in my recent video, he was a certified Chrysler Master Tech, and he had this old unit sitting in his shop. He still uses it today. And it was the perfect fit for this old Viper. I was able to monitor the actual temperature that the computer saw on a separate sensor. It said 205, 201, 195. It fluctuated in that range, and the gauge was saying 230. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. What I ended up doing is put a 70 ohm resistor in line. Perfect. Whatever the gauge said matched this exactly every time. All the way up from cool, cold, all the way up to operating temperature. This was a lifesaver. Now, speaking of Dodge vehicles, we're going to do buy this, not that, Dodge. We're not doing Plymouth, we're not doing Chrysler, we're not doing Jeep. It's specifically Dodge. And we're not doing trucks. We're doing SUV, sports cars, all those things. We'll do trucks later. We're going to do a full episode on just trucks in general. What's a good truck, a bad truck, because most automakers have one or two trucks that they make. So it's kind of hard to say what's a good or bad truck for Dodge. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting with small cars, the 95 to 99 Dodge Neon. These cars were fairly reliable. They did have some issues with head gaskets at the beginning, but it got resolved. And to be honest with you, any of these cars that we talk about today are not the best reliability. I'm actually just having to pick and choose from the pile that I have, kind of make it work. So, the 95 to 99 Neon, fairly reliable, good gas mileage. Pretty easy to work on, pretty simple. When I was in the military, there was a few guys that had these, and they kept driving and kept driving. Really not a whole lot of trouble. Based on what I've seen, based on working on them when they've come in the shop, for the money, they're really a pretty good car. Are they a Toyota Corolla? No, they're not. But they're still a pretty decent car. You can get them for $800, $1,500. Now, in that category, the one not to buy is the 1977 to 1990 Dodge Omni. These cars are absolutely atrocious. They're junk. The very guy that I borrowed this DRB from, DRB3, in the years when those were new, he said it was the worst years of his mechanicking career working on the Omnis and the Horizons. He said they were absolute trash. And if they were trash then, and the mechanics back in that day just had such a horrible view of them, I can rest assured tell you today it's the same today. There's really not many of those left on the road, but if you're in the market for a cheap car and you come across Craigslist ad, Dodge Omni, 1989, runs and drives, just don't do it. I don't care if it's $200 and it runs and drives. Don't do it. They're junk. Now we'll move to the medium-sized cars or mid-sized cars, and the one to buy would be 08 to 14 Dodge Avenger with the 3.6 liter. Not really with the 4-cylinder. They don't have very much power. They feel kind of rough when you drive them. They're a decent car. They're a mid-sized car. They're fairly easy to work on again. The 3.6 is not too horrible of a motor. They do have some issues here and there with them, but again, we're dealing with what I have to work with here. I've worked on several of them, and the people that have had them have been happy with them. They are going to have issues here and there, more so than a Toyota or a Honda. But in that range, I would feel comfortable to recommend a Dodge Avenger 08 to 14. The one not to buy is 2007 to 2012 Dodge Caliber. We talked about in the recent video how trashy and horrible CVT transmissions are. And that's all that these cars have, CVT transmissions. Back in the days when I was doing small dealership and selling cars as a Kansas dealer, we ran into a couple of these, and it was just CVT nightmares. I ended up having to buy good used ones just to get them running and driving and reliable so I could sell them on my lot. They're expensive to fix. They're not made to last. Just run away from those as fast as you can. Don't buy a Dodge Caliber. In the large car segment, the one I'm going to recommend is almost could be like a sports car, but it's really not. It's a large car. It'll be the 2007 to present Dodge Challenger. Now these are 2 doors and they're a little bit more sporty, but it's still their large car chassis. And I really would recommend the RT because it's going to be powerful, it's going to be fun. The 5.7 liter is actually a very reliable engine, more so than the V6. And the gas mileage is not going to be that much better with the V6. The V8 does just fine, and you get to have an RT, which is fun to play around with. So that's the one I would recommend in the large car segment. The ones not to buy are 93 to whenever they stopped making Dodge Intrepids. They are not good cars. They have steering rack issues. They have transmission issues. Every one I've ever worked on has been neglected to no end. Nobody ever fixes anything on them. They're just throwaway cars. They got good size to them and everything, but they just don't last. After 100,000 miles, it's down the toilet with those cars.
Car Wizard, it sounds like you have experience with the Dodge Intrepid.
I used to have a 97, and you'd go down the road and you'd hit a bump and it'd go this way and you didn't move the steering wheel, and it'd go that way, and it was like riding a Sea-Doo on the lake or something. Ended up being the steering rack was the issue, and it's so common on those, and it's not cheap to fix. Just stay away from the Intrepids. Now we're going to do an SUV segment. We're into the SUVs. The ones to buy would be 98 to 2003 Dodge Durango. This is the first generation. Really the ones with the 5.2 liter V8, the 318, those are really good motors. They're decent. They're not good on gas. They don't have a whole lot of power. But for what they are and for what you're getting, they're actually a decent motor. Being in these years, they're easy to work on. The parts are readily available. There's not a whole lot of weird, crazy technology on them like 2012 and 10 and whatever newer Durangos there are. If you're looking for a cheap SUV, something to get you by, it's reliable. I see these things on the road today and they're still going somehow. So that would be the one to buy. The one not to buy is 2009 to present Dodge Journey. Now, these are going to have, all these cars in these years are going to have similar motors, similar powertrains and transmissions and stuff, but the Journey, it just looks hideous. It's horrible. I wouldn't want to be caught going anywhere in them. It's so plain, it's so boring. I see the cars come into the shop when I work on them, and it's just like, ugh, the thing looks disgusting. I mean, it's just, is there anything inherently wrong with them? Maybe not. But it's, again, this is my opinions. I wouldn't be caught dead in a Dodge Journey. They're just hideous. So, now we get to the sports car segment. And of course, the one I'm going to recommend is 93 to 95 Dodge Viper. These are very easy to work on. There's not a lot of computer gadgets and gizmos on them. There's no traction control. There's no anti-lock brakes. It's just raw power, and it's extremely simple to work on. It's like working on Grandpa's hot rod. but it does have fuel injection and things of that nature. But I have found working on several of these, it was generally very pleasing to work on. Now any Viper, any year, you're going to have trouble finding parts. Just like some of my previous videos, we sent a DeLorean back in time, jokingly, to go get parts from the dealership because they are hard to get parts for. They just stopped making them. But once you do find the parts and get them, again, we did head gaskets on this one. It was just a breeze, totally easy. No camshafts to mess with, no timing marks. It's a pushrod engine. So I would recommend the Dodge Viper. Again, you're going to be in the range 20, 30 grand to get one of these. It's kind of expensive for an older car, but you could spend that much getting a Camaro or any kind of other sports car in that range, 15, 20, and you're getting up to that range. Now you're in the range for a Viper. The ones not to buy, 1990 to 1996 Dodge Stealth. In their day, these were awesome cars. The technology was great. They were very fast. But you buy one today, it's a nightmare. Some of them had all-wheel steering, all-wheel drive. The way the engine's laid out and the twin turbos and things, it's an absolute nightmare to work on. Parts, it makes these look easy to get parts. Try to find mass airflow sensor, one of those. I know because we had the one off of Car Issues in here, and it was a nightmare trying to find parts for it, just to get it running good enough so it could be sold. We fought and fought and fought with parts. Maybe some of you have had better experience with them. Post in the comment where you got your parts, but I sure couldn't find them. Tyler couldn't either. So we did get it fixed and got it out of here, but after working on it, I was like, this is a nightmare. You got OBD1, everything's crammed in there. It's hard to get to. You got all-wheel steering. When that acts up, it's like, what now? So I would run away from one of those. You're always going to be working on it, and you're always going to be pulling your hair out to try to keep it running. So in any of these cars on the buy this, not that videos that I do for any brand or make or model, I'm telling you from my experience the cars that have got a little bit of age on them. I'm not talking about 2019s and 2018s. They haven't been out to show what are their failure points, what are some of the issues they have over the last few years, because they haven't even been out a few years. So a lot of the cars I'm looking at are 90s, early 2000s. Most people that are looking for a car in the market, they're not looking for a 2018, 19. They're looking for something 2010, 2008, 2002, somewhere in that range. And that's exactly where I have the most experience. So that explains some of the choices I've made to recommendations to buy and not to buy. Any of the tools that I've seen that I use, you're interested in, or what kind of tools do I use? If you want to know, check my Amazon affiliates page, check our merchandise page. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell. Many more cool videos to come. And I think I'm going to finish up my game. I almost got to the end of the game. So you guys continue on with what you're doing, and I'll continue on here with what I was doing. Game over.